My mother-in-law paid a private detective to spy on me for 6 months. Can you imagine living in a constant state of fear, knowing someone is out to utterly destroy your life, and the man you love, your husband, refuses to protect you? This wasn't some twisted movie plot. This was my reality for years, all thanks to his mother. And what it finally took for him to open his eyes nearly broke me entirely. I've been married to Marco for 4 years now. We met, fell in love, did the whole thing. And honestly, he's a good man. I genuinely love him. But there's a darkness that crept into our marriage, a poison, and it came directly from his mother, Angela. From the very first moment she saw me, Angela hated me. And I'm not exaggerating. I watched it happen in real time. Marco brought me to Sunday dinner, and she went from a warm, smiling woman greeting her son to looking at me like I was something stuck to the bottom of her shoe. Pure, unadulterated disdain. And Marco, bless his heart, he always had an excuse. She's protective. She's old-fashioned. She just needs time to warm up. She had a hard time when his dad left. She sacrificed everything for him. I heard every single one of them. For years, I truly tried. I brought flowers, helped clean, complimented her cooking. Even when she deliberately made dishes I was allergic to. I smiled through every passive-aggressive jab about my weight, my clothes, my hair, not going to church, my family. Everything about me was wrong to her. But I kept trying, thinking she'd eventually accept me. I was so naive. Stupid, really. The real nightmare began about 18 months ago. We'd been married for a couple of years then. I'd completely given up on Angela ever liking me, but we'd settled into this cold, uneasy peace. She was civil to my face, and I just stayed out of her way. Marco seemed relieved we weren't actively fighting, and he never pushed for anything more. That should have been my first warning. Angela doesn't do peaceful coexistence. Angela does control. It was around September when I started noticing it, a silver sedan. Always parked on our street, different spots, but always within view of our house. At first, I shrugged it off. Then, I started seeing it everywhere. At the grocery store, outside the nail salon with Emmy, outside the restaurant where I met Karina for lunch. I told Marco, and he just said I was being paranoid. It's probably just a coincidence, honey. Columbus isn't that big. People's paths cross. And I wanted to believe him. Because the alternative? That someone was following me? That was insane, right? Then one afternoon at the farmer's market, I saw it again. The exact same car, in its usual spot near the entrance. I was so tired of feeling crazy, of second-guessing myself, of Marco looking at me like I was losing my mind. So, I did something I probably shouldn't have. I walked straight up to it. There was a guy inside, middle-aged, glued to his phone. When he saw me coming, he jumped. That little startled look? It told me everything. I knocked on his window. "Why are you following me?" I asked point blank. And you know what he did? He tried to drive away, with me standing right there. He threw the car in reverse, started backing out. I had to jump back to avoid getting my feet run over. My heart was pounding. My hands were shaking. I got his license plate and a good look at his face. Gray hair, late 40s, heavy set, wearing a polo. As he sped off, I managed to snap a blurry photo through his back window. Not perfect, but enough to see his face. When Marco came home, I laid it all out. Showed him the picture, described the man, told him about all the times I'd seen the car. And his reaction? He asked if I'd been sleeping well, if I was stressed about work, if maybe I should talk to someone about my anxiety. I lost it, absolutely erupted. I screamed that I wasn't crazy, I wasn't imagining things. A man had been following me for weeks, and his response was to suggest I needed therapy. He actually said he was just trying to help, that I was being aggressive, and that this was exactly why his mother thought I was difficult to deal with. And that's when it hit me, like a ton of bricks. I knew. Why else would he bring up his mother in the middle of me being stalked? Unless she was somehow involved. I didn't say another word that night. I just waited. Let him think I dropped it. The next week, I called Emmy. My sister, my rock. We spent hours Googling Private Investigator Columbus, Ohio. And there he was, Robert Castellano, owner of Castellano Investigations. Same gray hair, same heavy face. His website even bragged about his discreet surveillance services for concerned family members. A private investigator. Someone had hired a PI to follow me. Emmy wanted to confront Marco right then, But I stopped her. No, I needed more. I needed to know who hired him. If I accused Angela without proof, Marco would just defend her. Nothing would change. I agonized over it. Then it hit me. I didn't need proof before the confrontation. I needed the confrontation to be the proof. If I accused her in front of everyone and she reacted guilty, then everyone would see the truth. Sunday came. I was ready. Marco's Aunt Elsa, his cousin Terry, his wife, and Angela. We were all at the dining room table. I just waited for the right moment. It came when she made a snide comment about how I'd finally learned to set the table properly. I looked her dead in the eye. "Angela," I said, my voice steady, "do you know a man named Robert Castellano?" The entire table went absolutely silent. Marco looked confused. Terry's wife bewildered. But Angela's face went completely white, like all the blood just drained out of her in a second. I kept going, pulled out my phone, showed everyone the picture. "Does anyone recognize him?" Then his website, private investigator, surveillance specialist. I looked right back at Angela. "Angela, how long have you been paying him to follow me?" She started crying, whining she was just trying to protect her son, that she knew I was hiding something. She just kept talking, defending herself, and that's when she slipped. 6 months wasn't that long when you're trying to protect your child," she sobbed. 6 months, she said it herself. This man, this stranger, had been following me for 6 months. 6 months of my life where someone was watching my every move, documenting where I went. 6 months of feeling like I was losing my mind while my own husband told me I was paranoid. That last part one said was mean, and I knew it. Marco's father cheated on Angela multiple times before leaving her. It's why she's so paranoid about infidelity, why she always suspected me. But I didn't care about being mean anymore. This woman had tried to destroy my marriage. I told everyone at that table exactly what Angela had done. Hired a PI. 6 months of surveillance. All because she wanted to find proof I was cheating so Marco would divorce me. And she found nothing. Because there was nothing to find. I've never cheated on Marco. Never even thought about it. I'm not her. Marco was just sitting there, mouth agape. Aunt Elsa was asking, "What the hell is going on?" Finally, Marco spoke. He asked his mother, "Is it true?" She couldn't deny it. She just kept crying. "I did it for him. I did it because I love him. I couldn't stand to see him hurt." I looked at Marco, my voice a tight whisper. "What are you going to do about this? Your own mother had me stalked for half a year. That's not protective, Marco. That's not love. That's obsessive. That's controlling. That's insane." And you know what he said? He said she was just worried. That she didn't mean any harm. That she obviously went too far, but her heart was in the right place. I left. I stood up and walked out. Emmy picked me up because I was shaking so hard I couldn't drive. Not from fear, but from pure incandescent rage. 6 months of being watched and followed. And my husband's response was that his mother meant well. That was in October. I wish I could tell you that was the end of it, but of course it wasn't. What happened next was even worse. Angela decided that if she couldn't catch me cheating, she would make the evidence. About 3 weeks later, Marco came home looking utterly devastated. He sat me down and told me his mother had sent him some photos. Photos that showed me with another man at a hotel looking very intimate. I asked to see them. He hesitated, but then he showed me. The photos were of me, all right. My face, my body, clothes I recognized. But the man? Never seen him. The hotel? Never been there. When I looked closely, really closely, I saw it. The shadows were wrong. The lighting didn't match. My face was just slightly off. They were photoshopped. Angela had taken photos of me, probably from her PI or social media, and edited them to look like I was cheating. I pointed out every inconsistency. "Marco," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Do you really think I would be stupid enough to go to a hotel with another man in broad daylight, wearing recognizable clothes? Do you really think so little of me that you'd believe obviously manipulated photos from a woman who has already proven she will do anything to break us up?" He sat there for a long time. Finally, he said he believed me, that he could see the photos were fake now, that his mother had gone too far this time, and for a second, a flicker of hope ignited. Finally, he was seeing her. Then he said he was going to talk to her. Explain that what she did was wrong. Talk to her, like she was a child, not a grown woman who had deliberately fabricated evidence to destroy his marriage. I told him talking wasn't good enough. She needed to apologize to me directly, to admit what she'd done to the whole family, just like I'd been humiliated. And if she couldn't do that, then I wanted him to cut contact with her. He looked at me, bewildered. I can't cut off my own mother. Yes, she's made mistakes, but she's still my mom. She's all the family I have left. You're asking too much. I stared at him. Marco, your mother had me stalked for 6 months. Then she tried to frame me for cheating. Those aren't mistakes. That's a campaign. I am your wife. If you can't choose me over someone actively trying to destroy our marriage, then maybe we don't have a marriage worth saving. We fought for weeks. He kept trying to find some middle ground, some compromise. Therapy for Angela, limited contact. He even suggested I was overreacting. And through it all, Angela kept texting him, calling him, showing up at our house when I wasn't home, always playing the victim. Never once did she apologize. Thanksgiving was a disaster. Christmas, I spent with Emmy and my parents. By New Year's, I was seriously considering divorce. Then, in February, something else happened. Something that made the PI and fake photos look like child's play. I got a call at work. It was a woman from Child Protective Services. She said they'd received a report about our household and needed to schedule a home visit. I asked what kind of report. She said an anonymous tip alleging child abuse and neglect. My stomach dropped. We don't have children, I told her. We've been trying, but no success yet. She sounded confused. The report, she said, specifically mentioned a toddler in the home, gave details about unsafe conditions and suspected physical abuse. Someone had called CPS and filed a completely false report about children that don't even exist. I knew immediately who it was. Only one person unhinged enough. I filed a police report for documentation. The officer said false CPS reports are almost impossible to prove without a confession. This time, I confronted Angela directly. Didn't even tell Marco first. Drove to her house, rage burning. When she opened the door, "Are you proud of yourself, Angela?" I spat. "Does calling CPS with false reports make you feel powerful? Do you understand that filing false reports is a crime?" She denied it, of course. "I have no idea what you're talking about," she said, feigning innocence. "Maybe one of your neighbors had concerns." Then that little smug smile. That smile that made me want to, well, you can probably imagine. I told her I was done. Done with her. That if she came near me again, if she tried anything else, I would make her regret it. "You're the problem in Marco's life," she said. "Before you, he was happy. Now I barely see him. You've isolated him from everyone who loves him. You're manipulative and controlling, and I can see right through you, even if Marco can't." I actually laughed. A bitter, hollow laugh. The projection was incredible. This woman, who had hired a PI to stalk me, was calling me controlling? I couldn't even respond. I left, drove home, and told Marco everything. The CPS call, the investigation, confronting his mother. And he had the actual nerve, to say, "You shouldn't have gone over there alone. You're escalating things. Now Mom's going to feel attacked. And it'll be even harder to fix things." "Fix what?" I yelled. "What exactly is left to fix?" "Your mother tried to prove I was cheating. When that failed, she tried to frame me. When that failed, she called CPS. What is next, Marco? What will it take for you to finally see that this woman is dangerous?" He said I was being dramatic. That dangerous was a strong word. That, yes, his mother had made serious mistakes, but she wasn't dangerous. She was just a lonely woman who was afraid of losing her son. That was last month. We're still married. Marco is still in contact with his mother. And yesterday, I found a new scratch, deep and deliberate, down the entire length of my car's driver's side door. This is the 3rd time my car has been keyed since December. Always when it's parked at the house. Always when Marco is at work and I'm home alone. There are no security cameras, so I can't prove it. But I know. Deep in my gut, I know it's her. I told Marco about the car. He said it was probably kids. Suggested I park in the garage. Our garage is full of his stuff. No room. I asked if we could clear it out. He said he'd get to it when he had time. So here I am, married to a man who refuses to protect me from his own mother, living in a house where my car gets vandalized, dealing with a woman who has escalated from stalking to fake evidence to false CPS reports, and shows no signs of stopping. I don't know what to do anymore. I love Marco, but I'm starting to hate him too. I hate that he can't see what's right in front of him. I hate that I've become this angry, bitter person who can't even enjoy my own marriage because I'm constantly waiting for the next attack. Emmy says I should leave. My parents say I should leave. Karina says I should at least talk to a lawyer. But every time I think about it, I remember the man I fell in love with. And I think maybe if I just try harder, explain better, he'll finally understand. But that's how I ended up here, isn't it? Trying harder, explaining better, and nothing changing. After that, things were tense. Marco and I were barely speaking. He even started sleeping on the couch some nights because every conversation spiraled into the same fight. Me telling him his mother was terrorizing me. Him telling me I was dramatic. Round and round, until we were too exhausted. About a week later, I came home from errands. Our neighbor, Julia, was out watering plants. We've always been friendly. I waved, and she just turned away. Didn't wave back. Just straight up turned her back and went inside. I stood in my driveway, feeling like I'd been slapped. Then it happened again. With Stephen, 2 houses down. I was getting the mail, and he actually crossed the street to avoid me. By the 3rd time with a woman from a few blocks over, I knew something was seriously wrong. I asked Marco if he'd noticed. Of course not. I told him about Julia and Stephen, and he did that thing he does. That sigh. Maybe you're being too sensitive, honey. Maybe you're looking for problems. I wanted to scream. I just walked away. Emmy came over that weekend. I told her everything. She got this look. I'm going to talk to Julia, she declared. I told her not to. She completely ignored me. Marched right over to Julia's house. I watched from my living room window. They talked for 10 minutes. I could see Emmy's body language getting more tense. When she came back, she looked ready to commit murder. Angela had been talking to the neighbors, spreading stories. According to Julia, Angela had been going around for weeks, telling anyone who would listen that I was unstable, that I'd been having affairs, that I was trying to take Marco for everything in a divorce, that I'd threatened her, and she was afraid for her safety. Oh, and by the way, Angela had apparently mentioned that I had substance abuse problems, and that's why Marco's family was so worried about me. Substance abuse. Me. I don't even drink much. I've never touched drugs. But now, my entire neighborhood thinks I'm some kind of drug-addicted cheater who threatens old women. I waited for Marco to get home. Sat in the living room, lights off, just waiting. When he walked in, saw me there, he actually jumped. What the hell are you doing? I told him. About the neighbors. About what Angela had been telling them. About the lies. I told him his mother had been conducting a whisper campaign against me in our own neighborhood, where we're supposed to feel safe. And you know what Marco said? Maybe she was just venting. That she'd been upset, and maybe she'd exaggerated. She told people I'm a drug addict, and he called it venting. I lost it. I am done with your excuses, Marco. Done with you minimizing everything. Done with you choosing her over me, again and again. I screamed. Your mother is not just protective. She is malicious. She wants to destroy me, and you are letting her do it. Marco got angry. Started saying I didn't understand growing up with just his mom. How hard she worked. How much she sacrificed. I can't just expect him to throw her away. I am not asking you to throw her away. I retorted, tears streaming. I am asking you to protect me. Your wife. I am asking you to set one boundary. Just one. And you can't even do that. He said I didn't make it easy. That every time I talked about his mother it was with so much hatred and anger that it put him on the defensive. He actually said, maybe if you tried to understand her perspective instead of just attacking her, I could be more supportive. What perspective was I supposed to understand? The PI? The photoshopped pictures? The false CPS reports? He just stood there, jaw clenched, staring at the floor. I want you to go to her house right now, tonight, I told him, my voice dangerously calm. And tell her that if she ever speaks to another neighbor about me, if she ever says my name to anyone in this neighborhood again, there will be consequences. Real consequences. What kind of consequences? He asked. I don't know yet, I said, but I am done being her punching bag. And if you won't defend me, I will defend myself. He went. He came back 2 hours later, looking utterly drained. It's handled, he said. She understands she went too far with the neighbor stuff. She'll stop. I didn't believe him, but I was too tired to fight anymore. Things were quiet for maybe a week. Then Emmy called me. Are you sitting down? She'd run into Elsa, Marco's aunt, at a Kroger. Elsa had told her some things about Angela that I'd never heard. When Marco was in college, he'd dated a girl for almost 2 years, and Angela had hated her, just like she hated me, and she'd done things to try and break them up. The same playbook. Marco eventually broke up with her, claiming it was mutual. But, according to Elsa, Angela had convinced Marco his girlfriend was only with him for money. Marco believed his mother. I didn't tell Marco what Elsa said. Maybe because I knew he would just make excuses. Or maybe because I was starting to realize that no amount of evidence was ever going to change how he saw his mother. The next incident happened at a gas station. I was filling up my car, and this woman I'd never seen before walked up to me. Are you Marco's wife? She asked. When I said yes, she said she was Angela's friend from church, and she just wanted me to know she was praying for me. What do you mean by that? She said Angela had told her everything about my problems, about how I'd been struggling, about how Angela was trying so hard to help me. She said addiction was a disease and there was no shame in getting help. I stood there while this complete stranger told me about my supposed addiction and Angela's supposed efforts, and I couldn't even respond. I drove straight to Angela's house. I was beyond caring about strategy. She answered the door, surprised. I didn't wait. Walked right past her into her living room. What exactly are you trying to accomplish? She started the innocent act. I told her about the woman at the gas station, about the prayer offer, about the addiction story being spread at her church now. I haven't said anything that wasn't true, she declared. You're clearly struggling. Your behavior lately has been erratic and aggressive, and Marco is worried about you, even if he won't admit it. Do you actually believe that, Angela? I asked, my voice laced with disbelief. It's not a lie, she insisted. You've isolated Marco from his family. He barely calls me anymore. He's missed 3 Sunday dinners. Before you, he was such a good son. Now I'm lucky if I get text. That's not isolation, I said, exasperated. That's her son being married and having his own life. She laughed. You really thought you were special, didn't you? I've seen girls like you before. You might have Marco fooled for now, but eventually he will see you for what you really are. And what am I? You're a manipulator, a liar. You trapped Marco. Now you're trying to cut off everyone who could show him the truth. She even doubled down on the photos. I received them from someone who cared about Marco. I don't know who took them, but I believe they were real. I couldn't even argue anymore. It was like I was dealing with someone who had constructed an entire alternative reality in her head. She genuinely believed I was this terrible person. Stay away from me, I told her, my voice low and firm. Stay away from my house. Stay away from my car. Stay away from my neighbors and your church friends. If you don't stop, I will explore every legal option available to me. I left. There was nothing else to say. When I got home, Marco was there. He'd gotten off work early, took one look at my face, and asked where I'd been. I told him all of it. Marco sat down on the couch, head in his hands. He stayed like that for a long time. When he finally looked up, his eyes were red. I'm tired, he said, voice raw. I feel like I'm being torn in half. I love you, and I love my mother, and every day feels like I'm failing both of us. I don't know what to do anymore. I just want everyone to get along. For a second, I felt sorry for him. He did look exhausted, but that moment passed. This isn't about getting along, Marco, I said, firm. This is about your mother actively trying to destroy me and you standing by. I'm not asking you to hate her. I'm asking you to tell her clearly that there will be consequences if she doesn't stop. Real consequences, not another talk. He asked what that would look like. I don't know, I admitted, but we need to figure it out together. I can't keep living like this. My mental health is suffering. My marriage is suffering. He looked at me, really looked at me. Okay, he said, a quiet breath. I hear you. We'll figure something out. I wanted to believe him. I really did. 2 days later. That was the incident. the thing that finally pushed me over the edge. I came home from Emmy's house to find Angela standing in my driveway, just standing there waiting. My car was in the street, and she was blocking me from pulling in. I parked and got out. "What are you doing here?" She said. She wanted to talk woman to woman, clear the air. Every instinct screamed at me to go inside, but a tiny, desperate part of me thought, maybe this is it. We stood in the driveway. She started by saying she knew things had gotten out of hand, that she regretted some things never meant to hurt me. She was just trying to protect her son. I waited for the but. The but came. "But you have to understand where I'm coming from," she said. "You came into Marco's life and changed everything. He used to call me every day. I used to be the most important woman in his life, and now I feel like I've been replaced." "Angela," I said, weary, "that's what happens when someone gets married. Marco is building a life with me. That doesn't make me the enemy." She shook her head. "You don't understand because you've never lost everything. When Marco's father left, I had nothing. Marco was all I had. And watching him slip away, it's like losing his father all over again. For a moment, just one raw, vulnerable moment, I saw her as something other than a monster. I saw a woman who'd been abandoned, betrayed, and terrified of being alone again. But that moment passed. Trauma doesn't excuse terrorizing innocent people. "I am truly sorry for what you went through with Marco's father," I said, and I meant it. "But that doesn't give you the right to treat me this way. There is room for both of us in his life, if you could just accept that." She got quiet. Then she said something that I think about every single day now. "There isn't room," she said, chillingly calm. "The wife always wins. The mother always loses. I watched it happen with my own mother-in-law. I'm not going to let that happen to my son. I am not your mother-in-law." I said, "You are the one creating conflict." She just looked at me with cold, hard eyes. "You're lying to yourself. You know exactly what you're doing. I can see the truth." That's when I realized. No reaching her. She had decided I was her enemy years ago. "Leave," I told her, my voice flat. "Is that a threat?" she smirked. "No," I said. "It's a request. Please get off my property." "I'm not going anywhere," she declared, "until I say what I came to say." And then she told me that she was going to make sure Marco knew exactly who I was. That she would never stop. That she would do whatever it took to save her son from me. That I might have one for now, but she had patience, and she would be there long after I was gone. I walked past her into my house and locked the door. I watched through the window as she stood in my driveway for another 5 minutes, just staring at my house before she finally left. That night I told Marco, "We need to take serious action," I said. "Not another conversation. Your mother came to my house and told me to my face that she will never stop. This isn't going to end with talking." And for the first time ever, Marco didn't argue. He just nodded. "Okay," he said, quiet, "whatever you want to do. I'm with you." I met with a lawyer the next week. Emmy came with me. The attorney was more optimistic than I expected. With the evidence I had, witnesses from that dinner, the police report from the false CPS call, potentially neighbors, a civil harassment restraining order was very doable in Ohio. But then she got real. Angela would absolutely fight it. Depositions, court appearances, months of legal back and forth. Everything public. Angela would hire her own attorney, paint me as the aggressor. And then she asked me, point blank, "Can your marriage survive that kind of pressure? Will Marco stand by you while you take his mother to court?" I didn't have an answer. She told me to think about it. Said the legal path was there, but I needed to be prepared for what it would cost me, far beyond money. Emmy squeezed my hand and we left. When I got home, Marco was waiting. He'd taken the afternoon off. I told him everything, including the lawyer's stark question about our marriage. Then he said something that genuinely surprised me. He'd been doing a lot of thinking since Angela showed up that day, about what kind of man he wanted to be, about what his marriage vows actually meant, about whether he could keep living with himself if he let this continue. I waited, because I'd heard versions of this before. But then he said he'd called his mother that morning, told her he needed to see her. He asked if I would come with him, not to confront her, not to fight, just to be there while he said what he needed to say. I almost said no, but something in Marco's voice made me think this time this time might actually be different. We drove to Angela's house together. She opened the door, surprised. Marco didn't wait. He just walked straight into her living room and sat down. I sat next to him. Angela stood there, trying to figure out what was happening. Marco told her to sit. She did. Then Marco started talking. He told her he loved her, that he would always love her. But he also told her that what she'd been doing to me was wrong. Not misguided, not overprotective, just wrong. He said he'd been making excuses for her for years, but he couldn't do it anymore. Angela tried to interrupt, tried to defend herself, but Marco just kept going. He told her about the sleepless nights, the constant fights, watching me become a shell of the person he married. He told her she wasn't protecting him, she was destroying him. That every time she attacked me, she was attacking his marriage, his happiness, and his future. Angela started crying, and this time they felt real. She kept saying she just didn't want to lose him, that I didn't understand what it was like to be alone, that she was scared. Marco told her he understood she was scared, but her fear didn't give her the right to hurt innocent people. He told her we had just come from a lawyer, and that I had enough evidence to get a restraining order against her, that witnesses had heard her confess, that the police report existed. He said I was choosing not to pursue it right now, but that choice could change if she didn't stop. Angela looked at me with so much hatred. She told Marco I'd manipulated him, that one day he would realize she was right about me. Marco stood up. "Mom," he said, his voice laced with finality, "that is exactly the problem. You can't even hear criticism without blaming her. You are so convinced she's the enemy that you can't see how your own behavior has pushed me away." He told her she had a choice. She could work on herself, maybe see a therapist, or she could keep doing what she'd been doing and watch her relationship with her son disappear, while also dealing with legal consequences. He hoped she'd choose the first option, but the choice was hers. Then he took my hand, and we left. Angela didn't chase after us. She didn't call or text that night. For the first time in almost 2 years, I fell asleep without dreading what she might do next. That was 3 weeks ago. Angela has reached out a few times since then. Text to Marco, asking if they can talk. He's responded but kept it brief. Said he meant what he said, the ball is in her court. She hasn't apologized to me. I don't think she ever will. But she also hasn't keyed my car, or talked to the neighbors, or shown up unannounced. Maybe she's just regrouping. Maybe she's planning something worse. But for now, there's quiet. And I still have the lawyer's number if I need it. Julia from next door actually knocked on my door last week to apologize for believing Angela's lies and avoiding me. It was a small thing, but it meant the world. I don't know what the future holds with Angela. I don't trust her, and I probably never will. But I finally have a husband who's willing to put our marriage first, even if it took him way too long to get there. It's not a fairy tale ending, but it's a start. And for the first time in a long time, I feel like I can breathe. This whole ordeal made me question everything. My marriage, my sanity, even myself. It was a long, painful battle to get here. I'm curious, has anyone else dealt with a toxic family member like this? And if so, what did you do to finally find peace? Let me know in the comments below. I really want to hear your stories.